The afternoon sun dipped behind the pine trees of Redwood County, washing the small rehabilitation center in a pale, fading glow. Inside, the air held a tension so sharp it felt like glass. Volunteers whispered. A security officer stood frozen with his key halfway in the lock. And all eyes were fixed on a girl in running gear, white cane in one hand, her other hand hovering above the rusted metal of the kennel door. "Ma'am, please," the officer begged, voice cracking. "You don't understand. He's dangerous." The girl didn't turn toward him. She couldn't. Kayla Morgan had been blind since she was 12, ever since the accident that stole both her sight and her dream of becoming a runner. But she could still feel the fear in the room like waves of heat. And she could feel something else too, something pulsing from inside the kennel. A low growl, deep, steady, wounded. "That's the one," she whispered. Everyone stepped back. Someone muttered, "She's out of her mind." Another said, "He attacked 2 handlers. He almost tore one apart." But Kayla didn't flinch. She tilted her head listening, really listening to the breath behind the growl. It trembled, not dangerous, not angry. Something else. Pain. "Let me talk to him," she said softly. And with that single sentence, she took a step closer to the most feared police dog in the entire county. And the world, for a heartbeat, forgot to breathe. Redwood County wasn't special. A small farming town tucked between rolling hills and old forests, the kind of place where the loudest noise after sunset came from crickets. Kayla loved that quiet. It made the world feel less chaotic, made her cane taps easier to hear, made her memories of running, real running, hurt a little less. At 17, she knew every crack in the sidewalk, every dip in the main road, every hum of every traffic light. Losing her sight hadn't taken her independence, but it had taken her identity. She used to compete, outrun boys twice her size, breathe like the wind was in her DNA. Then came the night of the race, the shriek of tires, the metal crunch, the shattering glass. When she woke in the hospital, she didn't remember pain. She remembered darkness, permanent darkness. Her mother tried to help rebuild her life, but nothing filled the void running left behind. Nothing challenged her. Nothing pushed her. Therapy dogs? She wasn't interested. They were sweet, friendly, predictable. And Kayla had lived with fear for so long that she didn't want soft or gentle. She wanted truth. Raw, unfiltered truth. Something that still breathed fire, like the part of her soul that refused to die. So, when her physical therapist suggested visiting the Redwood Rehabilitation K9 unit, the place where retired or unstable police dogs were evaluated before being placed or put down, Kayla hesitated at first. But something inside her stirred. A runner's instinct. A fighter's curiosity. She agreed. She didn't know then that a single growl, a growl that traveled through a concrete hallway, would change her life. She didn't know that the dog behind that growl had a past darker than the night that stole her sight, or that he was about to become the only pair of eyes she would ever need again. The hallway of the K9 unit smelled of disinfectant and fear. Not the human kind, but the canine kind. The restless panting, the claw marks on the cement, the uneasy shifting of paws behind metal bars. Kayla tilted her head as she passed each kennel, trying to match sounds to shapes in her mind. The shepherd who paced in circles, the old hound whose breath rattled, the puppy who whined at every passing footstep. None of them pulled her attention, not until she heard it. A growl, not furious, but measured, controlled, like someone holding back an earthquake. Kayla stopped walking so abruptly that her mother nearly bumped into her. "That one," Kayla breathed. Her mother's voice immediately sharpened with fear. "No, sweetheart, not that one." The staff exchanged glances, long, uneasy glances. Someone murmured a name, Shadow. Even hearing it made Kayla straighten. The growl deepened, vibrating along the concrete floor like a living heartbeat. Kayla stepped closer, guided only by instinct. "He hears us," she whispered. "He hears everything," one of the handlers said. "And he reacts." Kayla's brow lifted. "What happened to him?" A silence hung in the air before someone finally answered. "His handler died. In front of him, on duty. Shadow tried to fight off the attackers, but he failed. He took a bullet to the shoulder. After that, he changed." Another voice added, "He's bitten every new handler since. He's considered unstable, unfit for service, possibly unplaceable." Kayla didn't know what unplaceable meant, but from the way the room shifted, the way people stepped away from the kennel, it meant something close to beyond saving. The growl stopped. For a second, there was only silence. Then, a soft exhale. A sound Kayla didn't expect from a monster. "He's hurting," she whispered. "No," a handler corrected. "He's dangerous." Kayla ignored him. She raised her hand slowly, letting her fingers hover over the cold metal bars. "Hi," she whispered to the darkness she couldn't see. "I hear you too." Shadow didn't lunge, didn't snap, didn't even growl again. Instead, the giant shepherd stayed perfectly still. Kayla took a cautious step forward. "It's okay," she said softly, her fingertips brushing the bars. "I won't hurt you." A handler flinched. "Miss, please, don't." But the warning stopped abruptly, because Shadow moved, not fast, not aggressively. He simply shifted his weight, his claws clicking once against the cement. Kayla pressed her cane to the floor, listening to the pattern of the clicks. "That's 3 steps back, and 1 forward," she murmured. "He's confused." "Confused?" her mother echoed. "Yeah," Kayla smiled. "He doesn't know whether to be terrified or hopeful." A whisper rippled through the staff. Nobody had ever described Shadow that way. Nobody had ever stood close enough to study his movements, let alone interpret them. Kayla leaned her forehead lightly against the kennel door, listening to the dog's breath. Not fast, not predatory, uneven, shaky. "He's grieving," she said. The room froze. Shadow's breathing hitched as if her words had reached through the metal and struck something deep inside him. Someone behind her whispered, How does she know?" But Kayla wasn't listening to them anymore. She was listening to the quiver that hid behind every exhale from the dog. "You lost someone," she whispered. "So did I." The trembling breath from inside the kennel deepened. Then a soft whine, barely there, but unmistakable. Kayla felt her throat tighten. First contact. Not physical, emotional, the most important kind. The handlers did not want Kayla anywhere near that kennel. Protocols were shouted. Keys jingled nervously. A volunteer begged, "Please step back, we can't guarantee your safety." But Kayla didn't back away. She stood straighter. "Let me talk to him," she said. "That's not how this works," the director insisted. "Then how has anything worked?" Kayla asked quietly. "Has yelling helped him? Commands, force, fear?" Silence thickened. "Just give me 1 minute," she pleaded. The director looked at Shadow, at the dog who once tore through a meth lab door without hesitation, who had dragged his wounded handler nearly 50 yards while bleeding out himself, who now lay on cold cement like a fallen king. "1 minute," the director whispered. Kayla reached through the bars slowly, deliberately. Her fingers trembled, but not from fear, from emotion, from the weight of this moment. Shadow rose. The handlers stiffened. Her mother gasped. Kayla's cane slipped slightly, tapping the floor. Shadow's ears twitched. He recognized that fragile sound, the sound of vulnerability, the sound of someone navigating darkness. His head tilted. Kayla felt the shift in the air, subtle but real. "You hear my cane, don't you?" she murmured. "You know I can't see, but I think you know what fear feels like, and you know what losing someone feels like." Another step from Shadow. Claws scraped softly. The handlers reached for tranquilizers. Kayla raised her other hand. "No, don't do that." Shadow's breath grew louder, warmer, closer. "Come on," she whispered. "Just one more step." The entire building held its breath. Shadow took it. Kayla extended her hand, palm up, open, vulnerable, trusting. Shadow froze inches away. His muscles quivered. His breath hitched. His tail remained stiff as a rod. This was not aggression. This was conflict. War within flesh. "I know," Kayla whispered, tears forming despite herself. "You want to trust, but something in you, something keeps pulling you back." Shadow lowered his head, just slightly. Kayla could feel the air shift across her fingertips. He was close enough that she could feel the warmth of his breath, close enough that one wrong move could leave her scarred. Everybody waited for him to bite, but no one expected what he did instead. He sniffed. Slow, long, deliberate. He was memorizing her, mapping her scent, weighing her intentions. Studying the unknown girl who dared enter his broken world without sight, but with courage no one else had shown him. Kayla's voice trembled. "My name is Kayla." Shadow's ears flicked. "I don't see you," she continued, "but I feel you, and I think you feel me too." Another soft whine slipped from his throat. Short, uneven, painful. It shattered Kayla. "You're not a monster," she whispered. "You're hurting." The handlers watched in disbelief as the most feared dog in the facility leaned forward and placed his forehead gently against Kayla's hand. Whispers flooded the hallway. "No way. He's never. Is this real?" Kayla bit her lip to hide her own trembling, but her voice, when she spoke, was steady. "I've got you," she whispered. "You're safe." From that moment, everything changed. Slowly, at first, cautiously. As if the world was testing how much kindness Shadow could tolerate without breaking. Kayla visited every day after her therapy sessions. Rain or shine, bad days or good. Her mother would drive her, and Kayla would walk, no, feel, her way down the hallway to Shadow's kennel. She'd sit cross-legged on the ground, leaning her shoulder against the cold metal. Sometimes she talked. Sometimes she simply breathed, letting him memorize the rhythm of her presence. One afternoon, Kayla opened a book of poetry and began to read. Her voice cracked on the first line. She hadn't read aloud since losing her sight. But Shadow lay down on the other side of the bars, his breathing syncing with her words, grounding her. Other days she sat silently, letting the heaviness settle around them, both like a blanket. The staff noticed that Shadow paced less, growled less, ate more. His eyes followed Kayla's movements, like he had been waiting years for someone to speak his language. Stillness, patience, pain. On the 12th day, Kayla extended her hand deeper into the kennel. Shadow didn't hesitate. He stepped forward and placed his massive head under her palm. On the 15th day, he rested his chin on her knee. On the 20th day, he fell asleep with his nose pressed against her shoe. Kayla fought tears every time. "You're still in there," she whispered to him. "Your heart, your loyalty, your courage. You're not broken, just lost." Shadow's tail would thump once, soft, barely audible, but enough. Kayla had never asked about the night Shadow's handler died, but she could hear the heaviness in the staff's voices whenever they spoke of it. One evening, as rain hammered the roof, the director finally explained. Shadow's handler, Officer Keller, was ambushed during a drug raid. Keller shielded Shadow with his own body. His last command was stay. Shadow obeyed, because loyalty was his instinct. Kayla felt her chest tighten. He watched his partner die, trapped behind obedience. The director continued. He never forgave himself. We found him standing over the body, refusing food, refusing help. Ever since then, he sees any new handler as a threat, like betrayal. Kayla's fingers curled against her jeans. He thinks trusting someone new means abandoning the person he loved. Shadow nudged Kayla's hand gently through the bars, sensing her sorrow. She whispered back, I know how that feels. This time, it was the director who stiffened. Kayla rarely spoke of her accident, the night her father died, saving her. The night she lost both him and her sight. Shadow let out a low, trembling sound, one Kayla had never heard from a dog before. Not fear, not confusion, recognition. Two broken hearts echoing the same story. And that was the moment the director realized. Shadow wasn't healing because of chance. He was healing because he had found someone whose wounds matched his own. 3 weeks after Kayla first touched Shadow, the director called a meeting. Staff, volunteers, even the on-site vet gathered around Shadow's kennel. They all felt it. Something big was coming. Today, the director announced, we will try opening Shadow's kennel while Kayla is present. Gasps exploded around the room. That's insane. He could hurt her. We're liable. But the director raised a hand. Shadow has not growled at Kayla once. Not once. He trusts her. Kayla felt Shadow's breath warm her fingers as she knelt beside the bars. It's okay, she whispered. If you don't want to come out, you don't have to. But Shadow stood immediately. Not rigid. Not tense. Ready. The director unlocked the door with trembling hands. The metal hinge creaked, loud as thunder in the silent room. Shadow stepped out. No aggression, no hesitation. Instead, the giant shepherd walked straight to Kayla and rested his head beneath her hand. Gasps echoed again. Different this time. Disbelief turning into wonder. Fear turning into awe. Kayla felt Shadow's fur beneath her palm and whispered, There you are. Shadow leaned his entire weight against her, a gesture of absolute surrender and absolute trust. The director wiped tears she pretended were allergies. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we've just witnessed a miracle. After the breakthrough, the staff began evaluating Shadow for a new purpose, not as a police dog, but as something far more delicate, a guide dog. Many scoffed at the idea at first. A dog with trauma? A dog who attacked handlers? That's madness. But every test proved the same. Shadow was different with Kayla. He paced beside her naturally. He braced his body when she stumbled. He positioned himself between her and obstacles. He slowed when she slowed and advanced when she hesitated, instinctively anticipating her needs. He became her shadow. And Kayla, quietly, steadily, became his purpose. Their training was informal at first. Simple walks, obstacle courses designed by volunteers. Commands spoken softly as Kayla learned to trust the dog she could not see, but whose presence she felt more clearly than light. One afternoon, during a practice walk, Kayla tripped on uneven pavement. Before she could fall, Shadow moved faster than any human could. He pushed his shoulder under her arm, catching her. Kayla froze. Shadow stood perfectly still until she steadied. She exhaled, breath trembling. You caught me. Shadow's tail wagged once, just once. But that single wag felt like an entire world cracking open. Kayla's mother still worried, every hour, every minute. But even she couldn't deny what she was witnessing. Shadow wasn't just helping Kayla. He was choosing her. And for the first time since the accident, Kayla began smiling, real smiles, laughing, living. Her world wasn't dark anymore. It was filled with sound and warmth and breath and pause. When the time came to discuss adoption, the director pulled Kayla aside. You understand, she said softly. This is unprecedented. If you take him home, he becomes part of your life, your responsibility, your safety net. Kayla's answer was immediate. He already is. Shadow walked beside her, calm as still water, as if hearing her claim him sealed something sacred. The adoption forms were signed that afternoon. Shadow was fitted with a new harness, not police leather, but soft guide dog bridle. When Kayla's mother placed her daughter's hand on the handle, Shadow pressed his head gently into Kayla's ribs. A vow, a promise, a new beginning. Kayla whispered into his fur. We're a team now. Shadow closed his eyes and leaned closer. Life with Shadow was nothing like Kayla expected. It was better. He woke her every morning with a soft nudge. He guided her through the kitchen, matching his steps to her cane taps. When she sat on the porch, he placed himself between her and the stairs, just in case. Every night he rested his head on her knee as she read aloud, something she once thought she'd never enjoy again. But the biggest change came the day Kayla made a decision. She wanted to run again. Not exactly the way she used to. Not with speed or competition or medals, but with freedom. She explained it to Shadow one evening as they sat by the old trail behind her house. I miss the wind, she whispered. I miss feeling alive. Shadow nudged her hand, then stood. Kayla felt the tug on his harness. He wanted her to follow. They began slowly, her hand gripping the guide handle. Shadow trotting beside her, with perfect rhythm. He kept her centered on the trail, nudging her away from roots, curving her around rocks. Kayla's breath came faster. Her heart pounded. Tears ran down her cheeks as she realized she was running. Not like before. Not like the girl she used to be. But like a girl reborn. Like someone who had found her missing half. Shadow's ears perked with every one of her breaths, adjusting speed, guiding, guarding, protecting with every instinct that once made him a legendary canine. Now, those instincts belonged to her. That night, Kayla hugged him tightly. You gave me my life back, she whispered. What she didn't know was that Shadow felt the same. She had given him something he thought he had lost forever, a reason to live. Months passed. Kayla's world grew, not larger, but brighter in the ways that mattered. She and Shadow became inseparable shadows on the streets of Redwood County, known affectionately as the girl who runs with the dog who saved her. People didn't know the full story, but they saw the bond. They saw the healing. One evening, as autumn leaves rustled outside, Kayla sat in her room with Shadow's head resting on her lap. She traced the lines of his face, memorizing every contour. Sometimes, she whispered, I wonder what you see, Shadow huffed softly. Maybe you see the world for me, Kayla said. But I think I see you in ways no one else ever did. Shadow nudged her wrist gently, affirming. Kayla smiled. Your handler would be proud of you, she whispered. At that, Shadow placed his paw over her knee. An act of trust, respect, and love so profound that Kayla felt tears fill her eyes. She leaned down, pressing her forehead to his. I see your heart, Shadow. Even without my eyes, Shadow breathed out slowly, a breath filled with peace. For the first time in years, if this story touched your heart, let it remind you of something simple and beautiful. Sometimes the strongest bonds are born from broken places. Sometimes the bravest heroes walk on four paws. And sometimes you don't need eyes to see love. Thank you for listening to this tale of instinct, courage, and healing. If Shadow and Kayla's journey moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Because here at Paw Prints of Valor, every heartbeat, every paw print, every act of courage is a story waiting to be told.